So the Acolyte season 1 is over, and last week was episode 8, the finale. We saw a lot of things happen, and if you don't want to know, I'm going to be talking some spoilers here. The one thing that stuck out to me, well, there were a lot of things, but one thing that stuck out to me that I disagreed with was the bleeding of the kyber crystal with Osha when she picked up Soul's lightsaber and it started turning red. I found an article on screenrant.com and it says, after 47 years, we finally seen the creation of a Sith lightsaber. And I thought I'd just read this article and go through it and discuss it afterwards and tell you what I thought. And I hope you stick around because I got 3 main points that I want to come across with talking about the creation of a Sith lightsaber. So it says, after 47 years, we've finally seen the creation of a Sith lightsaber. The Acolyte season 1 finale closed the chapter of May and Osha's life, but it also showed the creation of a Sith lightsaber for the first time in live action. The Acolyte episode 8 gave audiences plenty of reveals and revelations, especially about how the Sith are really connected to a broader story of the Acolyte. The episode also sees Osha truly embrace all of her pent-up emotions, leading to the dark side. The summit of the Acolyte season 1 led all the main characters back to May and Osha's home planet, Brendok, where they all had to confront their past in some way. Between the epic lightsaber duel between Master Soul and Manny Jacinto's Sith Lord Khmer, and Osha finally learning how her mother died, the Acolyte's finale flowed through on many of its promises, but also left clues about where the Acolyte will go next if given a season 2. One of the best and most unexpected moments came from Osha and her former master. Osha's lightsaber turns blood red in her hands. This happens as she kills Master Soul. After learning that Soul was the one who killed May and Osha's mother, Soul begins to choke, and at first it's unclear who is force choking the Jedi. When it's revealed to be Osha, the camera cuts to Soul's lightsaber in Osha's hand, and its kyber crystal can be seen changing from blue to red in her hand. As Osha continues to choke and eventually kill her former master, she leans more into her emotions of hurt and anger, making the crystal change color even faster. When Khmer places his hand on Osha's shoulder, she ignites the saber, and the blade can be seen changing from blue to blood red in her hand. While this is far from the first time audience has seen a red lightsaber in live action, it is the first time that a lightsaber has changed color in the moment. When Osha's lightsaber blade changes to the color red, she is bleeding the kyber crystal and changing the color permanently from blue to red. Note, it's unclear if Osha will build a new lightsaber hilt for her new bled kyber crystal, or if she will continue to use Master Soul's. How a Sith bleeds her lightsaber red. This has never been seen in live action before. While kyber crystals for Jedi can be in a variety of colors, including blue, green, yellow, and purple, it's known that a Sith's lightsaber is always red. However, red kyber crystals cannot be found naturally, but instead must be formed by the Sith in a process called bleeding. Because kyber is considered to be alive due to its strong connection to the Force, a Sith or any dark side user would have to pour all of their emotions, including hate and pain, into the crystal. This causes it to literally bleed and forge a Sith lightsaber. When a kyber crystal bleeds and takes on its crimson color, it has essentially been tortured into a weapon used by the dark side. This torture and pressure can sometimes cause the kyber crystal to crack, occasionally causing the lightsaber blade to be unstable. It's also worth noting that bleeding a kyber crystal cannot be reversed. However, it can be purified. This has been seen with Ahsoka Tano's white lightsaber blades, as she had purified 2 red kyber crystals to earn their unique color. Where we've seen kyber crystals bleed before. The Acolyte isn't the first time this has been seen in canon. While Osha bleeding her kyber crystal in the Acolyte episode 8 was the first time this process was seen in live action, it's been seen before in Star Wars canon. Bleeding kyber crystals were first seen in Charles Soule's Darth Vader comic series in 2017. Soon after the events of Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, Darth Sidious tasked Darth Vader with killing a Jedi and taking his kyber crystal to form his own Sith saber. After killing Jedi Master Karak Infila, Vader bled the green kyber, marking the first time this was seen in canon. The process of bleeding a kyber crystal was also seen in Charles Soule's The Rise of Kylo Ren comics, where Ben Solo turns his own blue kyber into his red one that was seen throughout the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Soule's other comic, Star Wars 35, also shows that Luke Skywalker learned about this process while searching for kyber on Christophsis. Most recently, Jedi Survivor saw Jedi Dagan Gera bleed his own lightsaber from Respawn. Osha seemingly didn't mean to bleed her kyber crystal, but it did come after much emotional turmoil, and her finally leaning into those feelings she fought so hard to control. While Osha's future will likely lead her to the dark side and life as a Sith apprentice, it will be interesting if she keeps Soule's lightsaber as her own moving forward. There are still a ton of questions about the future of the Acolyte and its characters, but for now, audiences should be excited to see such a rare feat on screen. What did you think about the Acolyte Episode 8 and their portrayal of the bleeding of the lightsaber? For me, I said I had 3 points. They briefly touched on one of them. My first point is, in Star Wars lore, the kyber crystal is actually sentient. So it's not like it's an inert piece of crystal and they can just pour their hate and anger into it and it just turns automatically like it did for Osha. They have to wrestle with it. In fact, the green kyber crystal that Darth Vader, they didn't mention this in the article, the green kyber crystal that Darth Vader used when he made it bleed almost turned him back to the light side of the Force. It showed him what could be in his future, like him getting back with Obi-Wan Kenobi and becoming, a Jedi again. And her just having it turn red all of a sudden, it didn't seem realistic per canon. The second thing is her being able to change it so quickly because she found out Master Soul betrayed her and that he killed her mom. Well, Anakin in Attack of the Clones went to save his mom, and he's holding his mom, and his mom dies right there. And you don't think that emotional turmoil caused him to push all his anger and hatred into his crystal that should have turned it red? I called poo-poo on that. I mean, he should have, his lightsaber should have turned red right then because he was in such horrible turmoil. Yoda felt him from Tatooine to Coruscant. Tatooine's on the outer rim, Coruscant's in the inner rim. And that's a long way for, somebody to feel hate and anger and pain. Yoda was saying there's so much pain. And even Qui-Gon came back from the dead and was like, no, don't do it. And nobody could, feel Osha turning a lightsaber red when Anakin fought Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith and he killed Padme basically. And he was so angry and he was already a Sith. Shouldn't his anger and emotions, his eyes turned yellow. That's the epitome of being a Sith. He's killed younglings. He's killed the delegates of the Separatists. He's done all these mass murders. That's not even part of Attack of the Clones where he killed all the Sand People. And after his mom died. So his lightsaber didn't turn red then either. And the third thing I was going to say, it kind of matches with the first point and the second point is whenever a Sith would bleed a lightsaber, they would have some kind of ceremony where the Sith would sit there and they would do certain rites and they'd pour all their emotion, anger, and hatred into the kyber crystal to fight it. So that was my third point. And they didn't even take time to have a ritual or anything like that. She just touched it. And if you're saying, oh, well, she was touching the kyber crystal with her thumb, and that's how it was able to, turn, and it poured all her emotions by her touching her thumb. Well, when the Sith did their ceremony to bleed a kyber crystal, they didn't touch it. They had it there floating. Like when they would make lightsabers, nobody would create their lightsaber by hand. They would do it through the Force. So the Sith would use the dark side of the Force to create the red lead kyber crystal that they had totally dominated with their will. And that's how red lightsabers came about. That Disney and Lucasfilm are, just throwing this stuff out, and they're not even looking at the canon and what goes into the process of the Force, of making lightsabers, just everything. I think that they have pulled back, and whatever they do, they're like, okay, that's canon, and then they try to backtrack and explain why it's canon when you have something totally different that happened before. And I'm not angry. I'm just sad and exasperated, I guess, because it would have made sense for her to have taken the lightsaber and struck down Soul with the lightsaber, and then at the very end have a ceremony where she turned the kyber crystal red, on that ocean planet. That would have been so much cooler, I think, and made more sense to do that. But I'm not the writer and the director, so. But whether you agree or you disagree, I love your comments. I love your discussion. And if you want to debate me. I love debate. I won't argue, but I will debate. If you like this video, then I bet you'll like this video too. May the Force be with you always.